Welcome back to WagerTalk TV. I'm Ralph Michael, sitting in for Kelly Stewart. Kelly with another obligation today. Joined in studio with the duo of Marco D'Angelo and Bryan Leonard. And Bryan, off air just before we were going on, said, I don't need notes to argue and get witty against Marco. And so this is, we've joked about it a lot. When Marco has a video, I like disagreeing. And when Marco says something, Bryan likes disagreeing. So let's talk about baseball, the first 5 innings. Back in Cleveland, I wasn't a baseball fan. I really didn't bet baseball, and I didn't realize that value was out there betting the first 5 innings. Marco will say there's value. Bryan may question it, and we'll see, and that'll be the argument. Marco, tell us the value, what you find is better with the first 5 innings when you may make a full game bet instead of a first 5-inning bet, and how much value or what are you paying extra to make a first 5 bet?
Well, first, let's say when you do a first 5-inning wager, you are going to lay generally 10 to 15 cents more than what the game total is. Would you agree with that, Bryan?
If you're playing the favorite?
If you're playing the favorite, yes. Okay. So here's the spot for me why first 5 innings has been more of my arsenal in the last few years. We've seen in baseball, the managers right now, they're pretty much like robots when it comes to how they handle their pitchers. Back in the old days when we were youngins, back in the day, pitchers, the old saying was, go out till your arm falls off. They left them out there. I mean,
are you talking Bob Gibson throwing both ends of a doubleheader?
You bet. Nolan Ryan with pitch counts over 100 and still firing those fastballs. You didn't bring guys out. You didn't have pitch counts. But now it's like almost automatic. Starters go 5 or 6 innings. Then they bring in that middle relief guy for the 7th inning. Then they have a setup guy in the 8th inning, and then they bring your closer in for the 9th inning. Well, that's all fine and dandy, and that generally works out for you. Good teams that have strong bullpens, yeah, you probably do want to take the full game instead of the first 5, but you're still asking, think about it. If you do a first 5-inning wager, you're taking your starting pitcher versus the other starting pitcher. Head to head. And if you feel you have an advantage there, that's where I look at it. If you take that same game and now stretch it out to 9, if they use the formula that they're doing, now you have to have 4 people involved not to screw up your bet. You got to have your starting pitcher do what you want him to do. You need that 7th inning guy to do what he's supposed to do. That 8th inning guy, the setup's got to do what he's supposed to do, and then your closer's supposed to come in and close the game out. So now you've involved definitely 4 guys instead of 1. So if I feel I've got a big edge with the starting pitcher versus starting pitcher, I don't want to involve anybody else in it. And I know you're saying, well, you're paying extra for that, but you're also getting an extra outcome on a 5-inning wager that you don't get on a full game. If you go full game, you win or lose the bet no matter what. Once your starter's gone, maybe your edge is gone. Maybe it's a 1-1 game in the 7th inning, but you don't have the edge in the bullpen, and you've laid the full game price. Well, if I had a 1-1 game on a first 5-inning wager, I have the option of winning. I have the option of losing, just like the other one, but we also bring in you can have a push. And I think the option for the push gives you some of the value in the extra 10 cents.
Bryan, I'm going to be like one of those judges. I'm voting for Marco. I'm voting for Bryan. Right now, Marco's points are pretty darn good.
Really?
Go ahead.
I thought they were lame, to be totally honest with you. First off, when you're talking about your last comment, you're looking for a push. Well, if you got the better team, you don't want to push. A push hurts you.
It's better than a loss.
If you're playing the favorite in the game, you're expecting to win more than you lose.
Absolutely, but it's an insurance policy for you.
Here's my problem. You're assuming if you've got the better starting pitcher that they're going to have the better day. But there's many times where these starting pitchers get knocked out. Now, if you get a starting pitcher that gets knocked out early, who do they bring in? The worst pitcher, the guy who's the long reliever. And so you may have an edge with the starter. But if say it's one of those games in Colorado or whatever, both these teams are knocking the ball out of the place, you're going to be bringing in the worst pitcher on your team, which you wouldn't have to worry about most of the time. With the 9-inning game, you can make up for that for the end of the bullpen. When you're taking a look at ERAs, you're taking a look at the way these pitchers pitch nowadays, the back of the bullpen is great. The Yankees, their starting pitching staff is better now, but last year they had basically 1 starter on their team, possibly 1.5 if you count Tanaka. But the back of that bullpen is so good. Once they got to the 6th inning, nobody's beating the Yankees. I've bet baseball long enough to know that the longer it plays out, the better chance the better teams are going to win. That's why baseball plays 162 games. You play over the entire season, you're going to have the better teams winning, but you play over a weekend, and Baltimore is going to beat the Red Sox 3 out of 4 sometimes. So if I've got the better team, I want to have it for as long as possible. I understand your reasoning behind it, and there are opportunities to make money there.
Tell us about when's an opportunity you would bet a first 5?
When I bet a first 5 was when, let's say I wanted to use that favorite team, and their closer pitched 30 pitches the night before. He's not going to be available.
Right.
So that weakens their bullpen for later on in the game.
Yeah, good point.
So you may want to play that first in the first 5. And a lot of people don't pay attention to how many pitches these guys in the bullpen pitch. You may have an 8-inning setup guy, and he's pitched 2 or 3 days in a row. He's not pitching that game. So you need to find out if these guys are going to play or not, and base your bet based on that. If everybody in the bullpen is healthy, I'd like to play the full game. If and it all depends on what kind of line you're getting. The problem I have with Marcos is he's normally playing the favorite when you are playing the first 5 innings. And if you are the really good teams and you're playing a bad team, you know you could turn that thing on. How many times
You take the extra time and a half through the lineup.
How many times have we taken a 300 dog against the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Astros, and after 6, 7 innings, we're tied in that game, we're winning in that game, and then all of a sudden, the better teams come back and win at the end. Those are heartbreakers, and that's the thing that concerns me.
Marco, let me ask you one more question then. Does your philosophy change because we know every pitcher's on a pitch count coming out of spring?
Right.
When you get to April, you're probably going to pitch 60, then 70, then 80, or some progression up. And you usually don't hit 100 pitches to May, or, an occasional pitcher may hit 100 pitches. Does that change early in the year compared to later, or is it the same thought process for you?
Well, early in the year, the first couple weeks, I go soft in baseball. I don't go with a lot of plays to start with for the same reason that the pitchers aren't at full strength yet, going from the spring training. And Bryan and I is going to be at spring training next week. It's a progression from the first week of spring training to the last week of how much these pitchers are going to go. So, yes, you're going to look at it earlier in the season, going to be more cautious with it. And again, I want to point out one thing that you said, and you're absolutely right about the pitch counts, watching the pitchers. And there are teams that have strong bullpens that I put on my list. Yes, if everybody's available, this is a full game wager. Several years ago, Kansas City, if they had to the 7th inning, you didn't score a run off of that
Kansas City
team.
is the team that really started this with the bullpens, the full bullpen.
7, 8, 9.
Okay,
Yeah.
So there's situations, but there's also times with the New York Mets last year. There's no way I wanted to turn that game over to the bullpen with the starters that I had. I wanted the first 5 innings in there. And the only statement that I'll say that you said was, you said my stuff was lame. The one thing you said was really lame, okay? He told me he doesn't want the first 5 innings because if you have a starter that has a bad outing, who are they going to come in with next? The worst pitcher. Well, if they come in with the worst pitcher, I don't care. You're not going to see your good guys out of the bullpen in the back end of that game. The game's over. They gave that game in.
The point is you've got 9 innings to get that money back, whereas if the guy gets knocked off in the first 3, you've got 2 or 3 innings with their worst pitcher. So you're pitching half of yours with the worst pitcher, where you're only pitching a third of mine with the worst pitcher.
But if you handicapped your starting pitcher, you deserve to lose the game. Pure and simple.
It's going to happen. You've got to look at quality starts out of these pitchers. Some guy, there's so many young guys that are great one day and lousy the next, and you don't know. I would rather have the full team's output after.
One last question. I know this is running long, but quickly.
It's good stuff.
Are your first 5 bets sides, or are totals ever in the mix, and why?
I don't use totals as much in first 5 innings, and I don't do a lot of totals to begin with in baseball. I'm more of a side player.
Because, when 2 premier pitchers are playing, you're probably, a total of 3? 3.5? When you have 2 stud starters?
It depends what the full game total is.
But both you guys mostly use them for side plays.
I would use side and total, and I'm not here to argue with Marco. He finds value in it, and there is value in it in certain instances. But I think a lot of the people, the lazy man's output is they don't want the relievers to get into the game, where they just assume every time this guy takes the mound, he's going to give you 5 innings of 2-run ball. Well, it just doesn't work that way, especially when you're playing the favorite and you're laying it. Like I said, the problem I have is it's a short-term thing. It's like playing first innings. Money could be made playing first innings, but it's a short time frame, and unless you're on it, you can lose a lot of money by betting first innings, because there's certain pitchers that takes them a while to get going.
You've heard the phrase, if you don't get to them in the first inning, you ain't getting to them.
And, I'll just mention now, WagerTalk does the first pitch newsletter. There are first inning logs and fifth inning logs in there, so it's something just for you to pay attention. Great video. Again, 2 opposing points. You guys, go ahead, like this video, share this video. Give us some comments. Tell us, is Bryan right or is Bryan wrong? Is Marco right or is Marco wrong? Or,
They're going to say we're both wrong. Come on now.
Fair is fair. Right. Good video, guys. Great discussion. Thanks again. Enjoy the videos. We'll be back with more WagerTalk TV videos.